It was so late one night that it was basically early morning when I woke up with this line from 1998's Prince of Egypt stuck in my head.
I did not see because I did not wish to see.
This moment for me is extremely powerful on several levels, though I don't see many people talk about it. Heck, the characters in the film even mock its overly grand delivery.
We didn't see because you didn't wish to see. Ah! Well, that makes everything fine then.
It's short, it's sweet, and tends to be overshadowed by the spectacle of the film. I could hardly blame anyone for missing this moment, despite Jeff Goldblum chewing up the scenery. So what's happening here? Spoilers for a 3,000 plus year old story and a nearly 30-year-old movie. Moses has returned from the desert with a new look, a new wife, and a new catchphrase.
Let my people go!
Let his people go.
Let my people go!
Let my people go!
Let the Hebrews go.
When he first approaches Pharaoh, he promptly is humiliated in front of the whole court. Realizing he can't convince Ramses with his snake staff, he tries to have a heart-to-heart with his adopted brother, which makes matters worse.
Tell your people, as of today, their workload has been doubled.
Moses leaves the palace, and clearly, bad news travels fast, because the response from his fellow Hebrews is swift. Aaron voices the opinion of the entire community.
So, Moses, how does it feel when you get struck to the ground?
And now, for a second time, Moses is humiliated. He can barely raise his head from the mud, knowing that his people, the very people he came to help, are justifiably angry. After all those years of hypocrisy, he's finally getting what he deserves. This sequence does a great job of introducing the characters and the audience to Moses 2.0. Moses' time away from home has changed him in ways that no one could imagine. He's grown up, and this has changed his perspective. It didn't happen all at once. In fact, you see the contrast earliest in the film between the chariot race, where the music is upbeat, the destruction is playful, the characters are so above everything that to look up at them, you'll receive an eye full of fan service.
Yes, but it's not much of a view!
And for all intents and purposes, well, Moses, Ramses, and the royal family were gods. Nothing they did could be criticized, and in these gods' eyes, well, nothing was wrong with the order of things.
Freedom? Why would I care about that?
Slaves.
They were only slaves.
Contrast this to Moses' walk through the slave yard, where he sees those who are forced to clean up the mess that he and his brother caused. He locks eyes with a passing slave and starts to wonder.
Are we the baddies?
But after having taken things into his own hands, then both finding love and finding God, Moses' perspective shifts. He starts to look at his life not just as what he could get out of it, but what his connections are with everyone around him. Or as Jeffro would say,
Look at your life through heaven's eyes.
he returns and everyone is expecting the same bougie boy from childhood. But Moses is no longer that person. He now sees through the pomp and propaganda, all the way down to the people who are suffering to keep this system afloat. I think anyone who has ever left home or reflected on their life, made changes only to be reminded of the person that they were before, can relate. The people in your life beforehand can't even imagine the type of person you are now. Let's just say before running to the desert, killing that Egyptian left quite the impression on both the Hebrew and Egyptian communities. But what they expect and what they see is very different. For Ramses, the hopeful return of a playful, rebellious brother is now a radical enemy of the state. For the priest, an irreverent prankster is now a powerful, stoic, spiritual leader. For the court, a quick-witted comedian is now a slow-tempered, silent presence. To the Hebrews, a pampered prince is now a passionate prophet. And no one, and I mean no one, is happy about this. One in Moses' sandals may have thought, well, of course the royals don't like me, but perhaps the Hebrews, my people, will appreciate that I stood up for them.
It's Moses.
Nope. Here's the thing. All they see is that rich kid coming in and making stuff worse. It's like during the pandemic when the celebrities tried to say, we're all in this together, from their mansions as people suffered on the street or in one-bedroom apartments. Once again, in contrast to the celebrities, they don't know that Moses' life has changed. This is literally what Moses feared when he spoke to God.
I was their enemy. I was the prince of Egypt, the son of the man who slaughtered their children. You've chosen the wrong messenger.
And though this is not a great day for Moses, it still resonates that God never said it wouldn't happen. Just that he would be with Moses.
Moses, I shall be with you when you go to the king of Egypt.
So, even there, humiliated in the mud, Moses doesn't lash out the way he used to as a youth.
You will show the proper respect for a prince of Egypt.
And here comes the real conflict. Aaron in the film serves a very different role than he does in the Bible. In the Bible, he's kind of Moses' hype guy, the Obama's anger translator of the Bible.
The nonstop focus on billionaire donors creates real problems for our democracy.
And that's why we're running for a third term!
No, we're not.
We're not?
No.
Or as VeggieTales puts it,
So, I do the talking, you do the thing with the stick, God does the rest, and we all go free? Exactly.
but here, he's the voice of the people, seeing what appears as hypocrisy and calling it out.
So, Moses, how does it feel when you get struck to the ground?
As a kid, I didn't immediately make the connection, but Aaron has now seen Moses lash out in anger twice. The obvious one being the killing of the Egyptian slave master, which I would imagine is what the greater Hebrew populace knew about. But I think he's actually referencing something more personal. The time when Moses attacked Miriam for daring to insinuate that he was a Hebrew as well.
I said enough! You will regret this night.
You can see it on Moses' face as he processes his response. Moses is remembering that night, and what a monster he must have come off as. One word from him, and they could have been executed. Aaron's passion is fueled by righteous indignation on behalf of the Hebrews and his sister, and the suffering of his entire community. How dare Moses come back and claim that their God sent him to be their deliverer?
God? When did God start caring about any of us? In fact, Moses, when did you start caring about slaves? Was it when you found out that you were one of us?
This sequence is set up masterfully. Watch, Moses is all the way down here taking this verbal beating from Aaron. Aaron is placed high above him to cast judgment. In contrast to how Moses spoke with God, where God starts from below Moses, subtly showing that Moses has the power to make a choice whether to follow God or not. Or how Moses interacts with Ramses on eye level, showing that these two are equals. Here we see, in the way these scenes are set up, without the people's support, what even is the point of Moses' crusade?
I didn't mean to cause you more pain. I'm just trying to do as God told me.
Moses' response is basically to blame it all on God. While true, Moses wouldn't be here had God not told him to go, and I think Moses is being earnest. He's still thinking here like a politician, not addressing the heart of the matter. Aaron is clearly saying, why should we trust that you have our best interest at heart? I've seen you abuse and kill when things don't go your way. And the response that Aaron hears to these personal accusations is, look bro, I don't actually care about you, God made me do this. It's similar to what you hear from pastors who will say things like, I don't hate insert certain group, God hates those people. And don't be angry with me, it's God.
And when things get freaky, funky, and nasty,
Blame it on the boogie!
Moses' response isn't for them. It's for his own sake. He knows he's guilty, and he's trying to convince himself that he wouldn't have done it had it not been for God. So as the accusations fly, Moses finally embraces it. Rather than finding comfort in his wife's defense, Moses finally opens up and admits to willingly ignoring the people.
Don't listen to him.
No, he's right. I did not see because I did not wish to see.
Here is the kicker, the game changer. In that moment, Moses finally embraces that he was part of the problem. It wasn't just his father, or Ramses, or the culture, or the community. He was just as guilty. He benefited from their suffering, a fate that he had been spared from. He even starts to talk a little like God does. What I mean by that is that most human characters in the movie speak very literally. Like, even when they talk about supernatural things or metaphorical things, it's mostly performance, or like they're trying to convince themselves. Here's an example.
I am the morning and the evening star.
Ramesses.
It shall be as I say.
With the exception of Jethro, most characters don't speak in metaphors.
Oh, great metaphor!
Once characters have an encounter with God, just like Moses, they are thrust into a world that's deeper than the surface level, and we the audience come along for the ride. Which is why, even when Moses is exploiting people at the start of the film, we're generally with him. We go on that same path as he starts to change. We ignore what he ignores. We have fun when he's having fun. So when he's all of a sudden slapped in the face, we have no choice but to stare the problem in the face too. In another world, he'd have been drowned in the river alongside this whole generation. Most animated characters don't get this real when addressing their flaws. Aladdin barely even realizes that throughout the entire movie, he has played down everyone else's struggle for his own sake. Back to Moses though. This is also an acknowledgement that his wife, Zipporah, was a victim of his position as prince. She's literally given to him as a sex slave. Sorry, is that too graphic? A concubine. And that's not even to mention how he talks to her.
You will show the proper respect for a prince of Egypt.
My point is, Moses takes real responsibility here. This one line echoes everything that we've seen so far. Moses chose not to see a lot of things. His differences from his adoptive family, the suffering of his people, the privileged position he had, the kidnapped sex slave placed in his bedroom, the pleas of his family, God's whispering voice. It wasn't until his illusions were stripped from him that he could finally be led to open his eyes and see through the eyes of God. The God who sees both the good and the bad, every angle of every situation, the God who hates injustice but shows mercy to us if we still don't get it at times. Through those eyes, Moses embraces the things he didn't wish to see, while not harboring hatred for either of his brothers, Ramses or Aaron. This whole situation now is seen less as good versus evil, but as a family issue. And it's the love of a family that changes everything.
Aaron, you shame yourself.
Miriam, who has been seeing God's work from the very beginning, sees the whole drama of God working on Moses' heart and has sympathy. Moses deserves hatred, ridicule, and punishment. But when he admits he wishes to change and asks for forgiveness, he receives grace. This is truly what seeing things through heaven's eyes is. This is what love is. And it took a moment of humility and him finally saying,
Miriam. I'm so sorry.
Moses has broken out of what is called by Erna Kitt Hatchett Disney princess theology. The idea that you are the main character and everyone else only exists to serve your narrative. I think most of us like to think that in the story of Moses, we would be the Hebrews, the good guys in the Bible stories, while forgetting that we are also blessed with a lot of things in order to live very comfortably. Comfortably enough to be able to watch this video, for example. And realistically, while this got Miriam on his side, the other Hebrews were not convinced. Now would be the time for him to put some action to those words. And Moses understands that he hasn't truly been putting himself in the line of fire. Now it's time to be self-sacrificial. I'd love to get more into this, like how this sequence is used to replace the portion of scripture where Moses speaks to the elders before confronting Pharaoh. But this is getting super long. If you like this, please comment on the video. Maybe like it as well. I love this movie, and it's a film that deserves a deeper look than is normally given.
I cannot change what you see.
But until next time, I'm the FDA Storyteller, signing off.
Mighty Yamses, we are weary of building your food pyramid. Let my pickles go!
Oh, jeez.
No!